Welcome to Driven By, a podcast where we have conversations with changemakers, risk takers, and entrepreneurs. Today, we're sitting down with...
My name is Armaad Morman. I'm the CEO and one of the founders of APM Defense, a small minority-owned business. I'm from Belle Glade, Florida, living in Washington, D.C. area.
I am so excited to have this conversation with you. I know it probably seemed very strange that I was like, hey, do you want to be on my podcast? But we have this special little moment that we get on Mondays.
We do.
Post-class, we work out together at Cut 7 and have found time to kind of connect in Asana of all places. And when I heard your story, I was like, that inspired me. So I felt like it would only be appropriate for you to hopefully inspire others. You are an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. You are a co-founder. You are a CEO, and somebody that I can tell just works really, really hard and is very passionate about what they do. Tell us a little bit about your business and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Thank you. Well, thanks for having me, first of all. We had a very interesting meeting, but I think Cut 7 is an interesting place too. Yeah. And it's interesting of what everyone does. I had no idea that you had a podcast. There's, so many lawyers, doctors, you name it, CEOs, founders of things. But back to APM Defense. APM Defense is a minority-owned small business, as I was saying. It stands for Acquisition and Program Management, and that's our specialty. We focus on providing and supporting the U.S. and foreign partners on defense initiatives. Mm-hmm. Basically, our mission is to provide comprehensive services for procurement, training, staging, and planning to make sure that the U.S. and its foreign partners have the best equipment and capabilities necessary to always be in the best readiness stance.
Right. Yeah. And there's somebody that's listening right now that's like, oh yeah, I know all about that, right? And then there's this other subset of people who are like, whoa, that sounds wild. Right. It's obviously a space that you're super familiar with because Absolutely. You've spent many years in the space itself. Talk to us a little bit about your past and kind of how you came into working in this very complex, yet very important, yet very secret and very secure and also very government focused space.
Well, it's interesting. If I go back to past or to talk about what did I want to do when I grew up, it was definitely not be a CEO, absolutely at all, or start a company.
Okay.
I was always passionate about helping others and selfless tasks. And so I was very inspired at an early age by Martin Luther King, Thurgood Marshall, and the civil rights movement and how they supported and fought for marginalized communities. Yeah. And so I wanted to be a lawyer, to learn law, how to, change laws in some ways that I can, understanding the law, and eventually run for president to change those laws for those groups of individuals who may be underserved, if you will, by the law.
Sure.
But it's really why I went to Morehouse College. It's where I moved to DC. But some way, shape, or form, life. And I ended up in a career of providing security and assistance to foreign partners in the U.S. And how I did that was, to make a very long story short, my senior year of college, I was a resident advisor. Mm-hmm. And as a resident advisor, one of the residents came in who moved in with his sister. His sister, I thought, went to Spelman, our sister college.
Sure.
She moved in, she came in, and I was just, hey, what year are you at Spelman? And she said, little boy, I did not go to Spelman. I graduated from Harvard 2 years ago.
Okay.
And so, but she was said in very jest, not
she didn't put you in your place.
She didn't put me in a place. A little bit, she did. It was in jest for the most part. Mm-hmm. Fast forward to the end of the year, she came to move him out. He wasn't ready. And she couldn't help him take all his huge boxes downstairs. So I felt sorry for her. So I helped him move his stuff and helped him get a storage. She was saying, when you get to DC, because I was coming to DC for a year off working on Capitol Hill, says, I want you to connect with some of my line sisters. She was an AKA. I said, okay, sure, cool. Didn't plan to do it. Came up here, I interned at Congressional Research Services. Mm-hmm. They're like the think tank for Congress, if you will. Sure. I did that for about 4 months, interned from a member of Congress for 2 months, and then looked for another job. Planned to stay on the Hill to do the political thing for a while before going to law school. And just hadn't found a job yet. Yeah. One day she randomly messaged me and said, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, chilling.
Right.
Right.
Nothing
at all. Right. Applying for jobs. And during that, she said, one of my line sisters is having a going away party. You should go. I'm like, well, she's going away, so I can't connect with her.
Right. What's the point? I'm not going to make her friend here.
So I went, the party was pretty cool. The next day I just messaged her, hey, thanks so much for the invite. It was pretty cool. And she just happened to ask, what else has been going on? I said,
Right.
just looking for jobs. Again, I said it in like very happenstance, just passing.
Right.
And she said, I may have another line sister who works for this defense contractor who works in foreign military sales who may be hiring.
Okay.
That line sister was a woman named Gail Guilford, Gail Adams now, who not only helped me prepare for the interview, she was one of my 3 interviewers.
Oh my gosh.
And that's my entry into the foreign military sales security assistant space, and plan to be there 6 months to go to law school.
Right.
And then started with that company. I was there for 12 years.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, to look at that just really quickly, it's this thing where it's like everything kind of just like happened properly. And I am somebody, and I know you and I have exchanged some conversations around faith and so forth, but it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, there's a plan.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? There's a plan. Yes. And it is absolutely one of those things where this person helped you meet this person, mm-hmm. and then this person was willing to say, hey, come do this. And then you met another person. Mm-hmm. There's a couple things that are in there. There's maybe, right time, right place. There's a plan, but it's also this beautiful thing about community too.
Yes, absolutely.
And what I see from you, aside from what it is that you do, is that you do kind of like tap in and like want to connect with people and build community. And I can see why that would be, or has been, so advantageous for you. And it's got to be like kind of rewarding to like know that this is the path that you've fallen into based off the path that you've taken.
Absolutely. As far as community, I think that is something that also is birthed in me from family.
Yes.
My grandparents on my mother's side had 8 kids.
Oh my gosh.
And so I think there's 32 cousins and about 34 great cousins. And I grew up in the town with my grandparents in basically the family house. And so we always had open doors. Everyone stopped by on Sundays. My grandmother probably cooked for 20 to 30 people every Sunday.
Oh my God.
And so community has always been a big part of my life. And I think as a result of them, I've always tried to surround myself with, positive people, be in positive spaces, and kind of grow my community, whether it's professionally or personally.
Yeah. So you move into a position with defense contracting and leave your world of law school behind. Mm-hmm. Any regrets?
None.
Amazing.
None. My mom initially, every year, probably for about the first 10 years of me working for my company, asked, hey, when are you going to law school?
So are you done yet? Are you going to go to law school?
She hasn't asked in a few years, so I think we're past that.
Okay. Any part of you you looked back and thought like that it may have taken you down a different path? And have you thought and explored that for yourself? Or have you just felt pretty 10 toes down in where you are?
Of course, over the years, I've had my thoughts on, hey, maybe I should go to law school. And then part of that my mom asking is because I kept delaying it versus saying I'm not going.
Right.
So I had those thoughts, but today I would say I'm 10 toes down.
Yeah.
Maybe in some way, shape, or form, I could support in some way. Mm-hmm. Like I was saying earlier, my goal was to be a lawyer and become president of the United States to change those things.
Yeah.
But maybe, a goal could be, and one of my actual goals will be to use the resources of APM one day to maybe support a federal, state, or even a local candidate who aligns with my vision on how things should, be better for Black and brown people, or supporting or donating to charities, or even looking at supporting incarceration rehabilitation programs.
Yep.
So it's my trajectory of what I want to do, or the role that I'll play in this process may have changed, but I think I'm still passionate about helping others.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you can still become president.
Maybe we'll see.
President can be anybody.
We'll see. Yeah, absolutely.
Actor.
Yes. We've had one.
We've had one.
Got a few now, actually.
A few, yeah. I mean, I think the idea, and what I hear you saying is that you want to have an impact ultimately.
Yes.
And the route in which you're able to do that can happen in many different ways.
Absolutely. Trying to do my part of participating in something greater than just me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you end up being, in working for the man, we'll call it,
absolutely.
Woman, whoever it was at the top. I assume it's a man because it's defense contracting. Maybe that's not fair of me.
That is very correct.
Okay. And something that you hadn't really like envisioned for yourself. What was the learning curve like for you?
Oh my gosh. My first probably year at my first company, and I supported the Navy, I should say. I don't think I said that earlier. Every meeting I went to, I had a notepad and I just wrote down acronyms because everyone is in the Navy space, in the defense space, period, talks in these acronyms.
Right.
And one of the most popular acronyms in the world of defense contracting at that company was AMOD, a modification. My name is Armaad. And so I'm in meetings and everyone's saying Ahmad. And I'm sitting there talking about,
like, guys, what?
Like, what do they want, right? Yeah. So the biggest learning curve was learning those acronyms.
Yeah.
It probably took me a year to get that. Everything else, it was pretty gradual, going from just almost like an intern or program analyst to becoming a director one day. It just came from experience and having good teams or good bosses who supported me. The person I mentioned earlier, Gail Guilford, she actually ended up being my first supervisor, and kind of took me under her wing. And so even when I did things that, let's say, not to the best of my ability, I'll say that, she kind of shielded me for quite a few years and allowed me to grow.
That's so like important to have either a mentor or have somebody that's looking out for you, especially as you're stepping into a space that's unfamiliar for you, for sure. As you're stepping into this space and recognizing that this is something that you are leaning into, is there a place in time that you can remember where you were like, this is like, I'm good at this. Like, this is my bag. Like, I'm going to do this for myself one day.
You know, reflecting mostly on the entrepreneurial spirit of what I'm doing now, thinking of like when it first was born, I would probably have to go back to my childhood. Growing up, my grandfather was a serial entrepreneur. He had a farm and sold animals. He had multiple apartment complexes and actually a small grocery store. And to be a Black man in that time, at that time, in the South, in a very racially divided city, was a challenge and an accomplishment in and of itself.
Right.
And I think it was born there, like just seeing how hard he worked for all of his businesses and to make sure that his family was okay. But I would say my real moment of like, all right, I think this is what I want to do came from doing it for a number of years with my team, seeing how we worked for a large corporation and worked with a lot of small organizations and saw the impact that they had on the defense space, providing these security assistance to foreign partners, and I would say our lure role in helping the nation and helping foreign allies secure themselves and making the world a safer place. And the role of small businesses in that had a very meaningful impact. And there were probably 2 to 3 small businesses that I worked with that were startups and eventually became multi-million-dollar companies that still had a huge impact. And at some point I was like, you know what? I want my part of this. I want to play a role, not just as a participant in a corporation, but a owner of something. And so it was around July 2021, myself and my partners created APM Defense, LLC. And we sat on it, did nothing.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was like a while ago.
A while ago, yeah. Did nothing with it, just created the LLC, and it was dormant for some years. In 2022, I was recruited by a tech company to come set up their foreign military sales division based off my expertise. So I was like, you know what? It's a different challenge. I've been with one company for 12 years. Let me try it.
Right.
But during that time at that tech company, and the challenges that came with working and setting up something new at a tech company, I started to feel like, you know, it was time for me not to continue to work for someone else. That kind of diminished. And my entrepreneur spirit really was birthed in. And if I had to give it a time frame, I'll say maybe August of 23. And fast forward 6 months later, February of this year, I left that company and initiated APM Defense, kind of dusted off from had to pay some taxes.
Right. Pulled them off the shelf.
Right, a little bit. Yeah. And here we are today.
It's amazing.
So only, April, 3 months in, but in the last 3 months, we've been able to do some pretty cool and major things, I'll say.
Yeah. I mean, before we get into the things that you've already accomplished, because when I was talking with you initially about this, you already had some things teed up and I could see the little twinkle in your eye and you were like really getting excited about having the conversation. I mean, thinking about what you're talking about, which is defense contracting and, you know, security and all these things and tying that to this idea of entrepreneurial spirit is interesting, right? You think of entrepreneurs, you think of tech startups, you think of small business owners, you think of, I don't know, your grandfather, for instance, right? And knowing that, and then having conversations, like for instance, sitting down with your family and saying, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm going to go do this. And then they think about entrepreneur in the way that they experienced it. Is that difficult sometimes? I mean,
absolutely.
in DC, it makes sense, right?
Yes.
We can talk about defense contracts all day and government stuff all day in DC. But when you take it out of context and take it out of here and talk with people outside of that, what's that experience like for you?
Oh my gosh.
Do you feel yourself selling it or pitching it, or is it?
Yes, yes, and yes. I'll start with family. I think family's always supportive. My family's my biggest support system.
I love
but
that.
I also have parents who are baby boomers. And I think so they come from a generation of course, my grandfather is an entrepreneur and parents are entrepreneurs in certain ways, but they always had their cushy job where we relied on our salary and worked for someone for 30 years and came from a system where, you do this for 30 years, you retire, and that's what you live off of your retirement. But I think because of, being a millennial, and because of looking at how they did it, looking at how my grandparents did it, and always having that desire to do something for myself, I wanted to push past that. And so some of those initial conversations was, maybe do this later. Save up a little more.
Wait a second.
Yeah, hold on. Like, don't leave your cushy job to do something just yet.
Right.
Take more time to plan it out. And I think I had to push back on that from family and a few friends as well. Just so, it's never too early to start something. And if you're really passionate and resilient, you should go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a risk. I mean,
it's
you're
absolutely a risk.
You're not just an entrepreneur, but you're a bit of a risk taker for wanting to do this specifically. I mean, it's a highly competitive industry, one in which I think a lot of times you go with the more established situation. Absolutely. Or you say, oh, I'm just going to go with this company because I know what this company does, and they have
it's the big five. The names, and
exactly.
I can depend on those names versus a smaller company that's a startup, only have a few people. Like, am I going to risk going with that company? You have to sell yourself to ensure that you're, have a piece of that pie.
Yeah. Well, and so think about the way that you differentiate yourself. What is it that you believe that your company is bringing to the table from a differentiator perspective?
Well, I think before going completely into differentiator, I'll say that myself and my partners, we're very resilient.
Yeah.
And hearing no is a big motivator, I would say. A huge motivator.
There you go.
And in this time, even in the last 3 months, there's been times where we've definitely been told no. But what we are very skilled at what we do.
Yeah.
We know program management. We know foreign military sales. We understand the process. And it is a space that many do not understand it, understand how to implement cases, how to work with foreign partners, how to work with U.S. embassies. So our knowledge base of understanding this circle of a cycle, if you will, helps us navigate the space, but also help others. And so I think our sweet spot is we can consult with individuals who don't know and need understanding of the company. Basically what I was doing already for a tech company who didn't understand, I can consult them and continue to show them how to, build or break into the space. But for ourselves, understanding how governments, acquire things that, they use third-party logistics suppliers to buy a number of services, how they need a number of the case managers need program managers or individuals to help them provide these services because their workload is just so much that they can't focus on a specific country or a specific task. And, we're good at fitting into those gaps, filling those spaces, ensuring that the government can be successful.
Yeah.
And I think that's a differentiator with us. And a number of even larger companies where they may do it, but they may not do it as well as we can because we're focused on making sure that whatever we do, it's not only successful, but we go above and beyond what the requirement is.
Right. Well, and I think too, being a smaller organization, having more of that personal touch can go a long way, especially in an industry that I think runs on autopilot sometimes and kind of loses that that opportunity to be a little bit more in the details and be a little bit more thoughtful about the approach. I know you've only been doing this for 3 months. I felt myself wanting to ask whether or not your experience as, personally being a Black man in what I believe to be a fairly white, older man dominated industry. Yeah. Similarly to some sales, roles that I've been in where it's I'm a woman in a room full of all men.
Yes.
What that experience has been like for you. And especially now that you get to be a CEO.
Yeah.
You get to say, no, now I'm the person, kind of like being able to call the shots and being in the room, being able to affirm other people,
Yes.
not because
Yes.
of, X, Y, and Z, if that has been empowering for you in some
Absolutely.
capacity.
Absolutely. I will say the first half of my career, being in those spaces and oftentimes being the only black or being the only black male, I did not feel like I had a voice. And
Sure.
so for a number of years, I just listened and only provided input when asked, or just did my job really well and did not try to rock the boat. But I think even before coming a CEO, once I got into the director position at my last job, I said to myself, like, if I ever got into a position where I could make effective change for those underneath me, I
Right.
would do that. And so I started rocking the boat a little bit, or speaking out about things that I thought was unjust, even when it brought me into the negative spotlight. As long as it was something that I was passionate about, or I was helping someone in some positive way,
Yeah.
at that point it didn't matter. And I think maybe that was me and that entrepreneur spirit birthing as well. I mean,
Sure.
caring less about how it affected me in my career and more about was it the right thing to do at the time, and how it affected the individuals who reported to me.
Sure. Well, I could see it being the entrepreneurial spirit being birthed, and also you tapping back into your original plan, right? Of like wanting to create space where, black and brown, folks were able to actually like have a voice,
Yes,
or
absolutely.
be seen, or being inspired by the folks that you've been inspired by, to kind of lead you down your own professional path. I mean, I think it's amazing when you can kind of see it all come back together.
Absolutely.
And you can
Absolutely.
start to access that part of you and have this opportunity to like create change.
Absolutely.
So,
And of course, that comes with mistakes too.
oh,
Absolutely.
sure.
I recall one time in this same conversation of someone who reported to me who wanted a promotion, who they absolutely deserved it,
Yeah.
but they didn't necessarily play the game, if you will.
The game.
And yeah, the game. And I had this conversation with them on the side about playing the game.
Right.
And at the time, they pushed back and was like, why should I have to play this game? And at the time, I thought I was justified to tell them, hey, you do this and you're going to, get that.
Right.
But that she was right. Like, she shouldn't have had to play the game. If she did her work well and she did what she needed to do to be successful in that position, she should have got what she wanted.
Right.
She earned. And so a part of being a CEO, a part of APM, my goal is not to force people to have to play a game, but just to show up, be their authentic selves, do the work, of course, and be successful.
I love that. I think being able to understand that and reflect back on that and allowing that to be part of what is going to cultivate change in your own culture as you're thinking about your company is so incredible. As you're actively stepping into this world where you have created your own company, in partnership with others, looking back at your past, knowing that you had worked for this one company, this tech company, which those two companies definitely function differently, right?
different.
Tech
Totally
companies are
different.
a different bag than a traditional like consultancy or whatever it might be. What are the two things, let's say you're pulling one thing out of this bucket and you're pulling one thing out of that bucket that you are applying to your culture, and the two things that you are absolutely not bringing to the culture outside of the game, obviously?
So this is very timely because earlier today I was meeting with a company to discuss benefits for the company. So one of the things I think I will take from the tech side of the house is benefits.
Yeah.
Most of the tech companies that I've heard of, and specifically the one I work for, had amazing benefits. They pretty much covered 100% of the benefits for their employees. And the more formal defense contractor I work for did not. Or the benefits just wasn't as good. And I absolutely want to take that away. Work-wise, the tech company empowered everyone to make big decisions very quickly.
Yeah.
Or what I used to hear a lot at the last tech company is that company provided people with live ammunition to play with from day one.
Oh,
and so I want to empower people on day one to, hey, if you are passionate about something, if you are, what's the word I'm looking for? If you are convicted that it is the right move to make, and of course it doesn't get us in trouble, it's in all,
Right.
all the
That's all
right
the-
things, go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it. If that means you need to travel somewhere, if that means you need to meet with someone, you don't have to answer the hierarchy to do it.
right.
And that is one thing that the opposite of, working for a defense contractor, it was definitely a hierarchy that you had to answer to before doing anything. A lot of red tape.
Yeah.
There are things, though, I think, from the company that I work for that was necessary. I think a hierarchy is necessary in the sense of when there's someone who needs a decision, and they feel that that decision is above them and they need support from leadership. I think they give it. And I think working for a tech company that's very flat, when you needed someone above you to make decisions, it was like
hard.
It was hard to get.
Yeah.
And so I want to be that support when necessary, but hands off when it was a big decision that you think you needed. Go make the decision. So
I love those two things. I think it's going to set you apart, right, in the industry, I think.
Inshallah, as they say.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like it will. It feels nice. It feels nice. When you think about your personal life and you think about your professional life, what are the things that you think from your personal life make you better in your professional life?
I don't take no lightly. I always think, circling back on the no motivates me.
Yeah.
So if I hear no, especially professionally, I find ways to turn that no into a yes, or find ways to prove to whatever person that said no it should have been a yes, because I'm a hard worker, or my project, I really work to do whatever. Personally, I honestly would circle back on community.
Yeah.
Having community amongst my friends and my family has just made the biggest difference on just decisions that I've had to make, to run by best friends,
Right.
or colleagues, or trusting individuals to partner with me to start a business. I think all those things I bring into the business space, because one of the things I'm worried about at APM will likely be mostly a virtual company, but I want us to have community. And so I'm going to figure out ways to create that community amongst those individuals, even though we're not in the same building.
Yeah, I think it's a superpower of yours. Just having spent a little bit of time first watching, because I'm not the person at the gym that's gonna you'd been going there for a second longer than me, so I certainly wasn't gonna lean into the cool kids and be like, hey, be my friend. But I definitely kind of watch and observe the energy that you bring into the space and other people bring into the space, and the community that you've been able to create inside of a community, which is so wonderful when you see that. But then on top of that, being able to access that, talk to you, I was like, this person very much can do this entrepreneurial thing, because there's good energy that you're bringing to it. You are able to connect with people and actively connect with people, and then also empower other people to lean in, share things that you've done, accomplishment wise, goals, whatever it might be, right? We had a little conversation about some of the things that we were experiencing when we were maybe giving up a few things.
Yes, absolutely.
I was like, this is fun. This is a good little exchange. And this makes you somebody that's easily accessible to other people and able to relate to lots of different types of people. So I'm happy to hear that that's what you're taking into your professional, because I definitely see that being a bit of a superpower of yours. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I think, like I was saying, that community and diversity just makes us all better.
Yeah.
And so making sure that's a part of the organization is a must.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So if you were to deduce down, I keep studying around this word, but if you were able to pick one word that ultimately drives you, what would that be?
Faith. I have faith.
Speak on it.
That some people call me crazy, but I have faith that I'm going to be successful. And I try to surround myself with people, places, and things that help me to do that. So I'm a big dreamer. Funny thing, I think as children we have a God complex, or the Superman complex, I think it's called, where you think you can jump off a building and fly. Yes. And at some point as adults, we kind of lose that Superman complex because we are told no. Or,
mortality
adults,
sinks in. You're like, I actually could die if I jump
adults actually telling us we can't do certain things, or you have to wait your time.
Right.
And I think I've never lost my Superman complex.
Nice.
Of course, I can't jump off of a building and survive, depending on how high it is. But for the most part, I think I can do most things that I put my mind to. And I plan to do it.
I love that. I think that's real. I think we get to this point where we become very risk adverse.
Yes.
And it's the individuals that can take that step, that leap of faith, that end up getting either the best lessons taught
Absolutely.
or yield like the highest results and best experience. If you were to give one piece of advice to somebody listening, and it could be somebody that's thinking about entrepreneurship, could be somebody that just is walking down the street, what would that piece of advice look like?
It's never too late or too early to start something. As long as you have resilience and perseverance, you can overcome anything. Absolutely. Like you were saying that, starting something new or changing something comes with a certain level of obstacles, but it also comes with the opportunity to learn and grow. And with those obstacles, if you are resilient and persevere, you can do anything.
Yeah. It's true.
Never accept no.
Never accept no.
In the professional sense.
Right. Consent is still important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I thought about that after maybe. Yes.
Amazing. So if somebody were listening and they were like, oh, I want to link up with this person, I want to network with this person, I would like to explore, what it is that they're providing, or just in general is inspired by what they heard, what is the best way for them to connect?
I can be reached, of course, via LinkedIn. My name is, again, Armaad Morman, last name Morman. You can check out our website at www.apmdefense.com, or just shoot me an email. My email is amorman@apmdefense.com.
Amazing. I am so incredibly grateful that you took the time to have this conversation with me. I think it's interesting how you don't really... Excuse me, Coachella is still sitting in my throat. It's amazing how you, I don't know. It's amazing how you really don't know what it is a person does until you take the time to get to know them and chat with them. I feel very much that the way that we were able to get into the what do you do for work conversation was the right way to do it.
It wasn't the normal DC.
It wasn't the DC way.
Yeah.
And I think you inspired me more by having the conversation the way we did. So I hope that there's someone that's listening that has also felt inspired by your trajectory and the decisions that you've made to step into this space of entrepreneurship. It's not an easy one.
Absolutely not.
It's scary.
Yeah. But it's doable.
It's doable.
It's doable.
And I am so freaking excited to see where you're at 6 months from now.
Absolutely. I look forward to circling
3
back.
months. Yeah, absolutely. And I want to celebrate your wins with you. So
I appreciate that.
Thank you for sharing them.
And I will say thank you for building community with me. And I am honestly honored that you saw something very early on in me and APM Defense that you wanted to interview me. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.